Okay, we'll get going. I think this is all we've got for this morning. Thanks everyone for coming and being Max users. So we're going to talk briefly about, or for the next 3/4 of an hour, about our company and what we've been doing and sort of our journey to where we've got to today. Just introduce ourselves. This is SiNi.
Guys.
So the name comes from basically both of us. It's Si and Nigel, first syllable. That's us in a nutshell. So let's talk about us for a little bit. So yeah, there's the name. We have been in development for about 30 months. We started as an in-house development team working for my production company. Si was working with me. Do you want to say a few?
Yeah, a lot of the stuff that we did as when I worked for Nigel is we built a lot of production tools, and we sort of had to cover everything from building cities to making sure that renders were submitted and sort of keeping the everyday company going. So as we started doing this in script, we realized that we had to actually write some proper plugins and do C++. So as these tools evolved, we decided to sort of put a little more into them and make them public so we'd start reselling these tools. So a lot of the stuff that we've been working with a lot of the render companies, which is great. We've gotten feedback from like the Arnold guys, Corona, V-Ray, everybody, Redshift, and they've been making sure that they help us out so all of our plugins work with their software.
So, do you want to jump on the next one? So yeah, we sort of set out with, I don't know how many of you use or have been using Macs for quite some time, but in production, we're always coming across issues and problems and how to solve them. So some of the ones we initially set out to solve were, as a business owner, how can I make using Macs more efficient and make more profit? 2, we needed to, as Si just touched on, build a city building tool. It's like, how can you generate a whole city with a small team in a very short time? We needed a 3D proxy that worked not just with V-Ray and Corona, but worked with many different renderers, because we would hop from one renderer to the next. And we needed a tool that would allow us to actually, it was universal, work from one to the other. And of course, asset management. We needed to be able to access, and in my company we had over 10,000 3D assets that artists would come and you'd find that people would be looking for a model for hours. And you're like, well, there's got to be a more efficient way within Max to actually be able to work this. So these were the initial ideas that Si and his team set out to solve. And hopefully today we're going to show you some of the results.
So we have a lot of tools that we're putting out. Ignite is our main tool, and that's pretty much a second control panel for 3D Studio Max. Then we have a lot of tools that sort of are utilities of Ignite. We have Forensic, which is a complete scene checking tool. Go evaluate all the problems you might have in your scene and fix it. We have Scribe, which is a big spline tool, sort of go through, evaluate CAD drawings, overlapping splines, sort of all the stuff that you might have used in scripts, but in C++ it's a lot faster, so bulk attaching, exploding, conforming to surfaces, a whole bunch of different stuff. Jumble, which is a random transform tool and selection tool. Lumi, which is an HDRI tool, and we're actually bundling together from HDRI Skies a free set of 16K HDRIs. So what happens is you'll open it up, it'll detect what render you're using, you select an HDRI, and it'll bring it in and set it up in your scene however the renderer needs it. So V-Ray is going to be different than Corona, how they use an HDRI. Sculpt, which is our meshing tool, does a lot of meshing and some retopologizing that we're going to show. Unite is a relinking tool, so relink anything from Fume Effects to Krakatoa to bitmaps. Cyclops is our camera tool, and that works with sort of our bulk render submitter, which is Submit. We have Comply, which sort of deals with passes and getting your renders ready to send, and Amy, which is our asset management interface. And then on top of that, we have Proxy, which is a universal proxy, which gives you the ability to lock down a 3D asset to a time and a date. So if you wanted to give it out to, say, a client, a big model you've been working on, you can set it for 2 months down the road, and after that, they'll never be able to export it or render it. It'll be actually useless after that. So you can time lock our assets. And that's a universal proxy that works with all the render engines. Cyclone and Scatter, they're scattering along a spline or on a surface. And Forensic, which is you saw on the top, we also give that out for free. So we're always going to maintain that and give that out for free.
So that sort of covers a bit of the overview. Now we'll get down to the video. So you've got to forgive us, we sort of threw this together last night. Yep.
So this is a lot of stuff that we sort of put together from jobs that Nigel's company has done. And some of the assets, building stuff.
So that's the whole of Dubai built in 3D. They're right down to, all the way down to the marina, off into the distance. It's all 3D. And the only way a team, there's some of the team in today who have done an incredible job building that, but using the tools, that's what we're set out to do. So you can build cities.
So what we're going to come up to next, can you speed up to that?
Yeah.
We're going to talk about some of the retopologizing stuff that we're doing in Max. Now, where a lot of these tools came about was we were building a city engine for inside of 3D Studio Max, and what we realized was we need to retopologize geometry. Anything that you get from architects or SketchUp or Revit is generally the massing models that you get from that have double faces or stacked on top of each other. So the example of this one with double faces or lots of geometry, we're working on a lot of our retopologizing tools, and a lot of the functions that go into this we've decided to throw into our tools, like our spline tools or our meshing tools or whatnot. And everything is, you can max script to all of this as well. We have a complete max script library, so all our C++ functions you'll be able to do, add into your own max script as well. So a lot of the stuff like this is a good example of where you'd get something out of SketchUp, which is pretty much a stack of boxes. So we've had to look at a lot of different ways to deal with this stuff before we could build our city engine. So Colonize is going to be something that you're going to see probably in about 6 months down the road.
A light version of this is better than
Yeah, but we've used this over and over again. We've had projects that we've had to build all of New York City in the 1800s, all of New York City in 1900s, and then do present day stuff. We had to build Paris, we had to build Rome. So there was a lot of building stuff that we had to do. So over the 2.5 years that we worked in production, we built a lot of tools for a small studio. So now we're going to, like we said, try and put these out so everybody can use it. We're working on a lot of different types of retopologizing as well. So what we're doing here to retopologize planes is very different than the way that we do massing models and stuff. So there isn't an all-seeing retopologizing function out there that we've found that sort of deals with everything. So we're going to try and add a lot of this stuff into the tools as well and make it max scriptable.
Is that possible?
Yeah, jump onto that. So actually, can you just go back a little bit? This was our old setup. And what this did was you'd be able to bring this in, evaluate the massing, and this was our max script back in the day. So you'd be able to evaluate the massing and then select it, and depending on styles that you had preset, it would go build up your city. It worked really well for us. We had a master plan which had over 2,000 buildings, and we did it in 45 minutes. And then we were able to just change the styles, delete the whole city, and rebuild it right back up again. Unfortunately, Max scripts can't be protected, so we're not releasing this, but it will be out in the C++ version of it. And we've gone from doing
So that's
Hold
real
on.
time.
We've gone to doing that in real time as a slow thing to now doing 300 buildings in a millisecond. So there's a big jump to the speed in C++ than there is in MaxScript. Properly jump. So like any of these, you can select something, build it up, and just rebuild it back up from our massing. This is Forensic. This is our free tool, but this is sort of where we started out with having projects where you'd have to go in, you'd open something up, you got it in from another software. We want to evaluate it all. So not only finding things, but repairing things. So going through, finding any CAD blocks. I don't know, a lot of you guys work with that. It's always a nightmare. You go to move something or alter it and they just jump all over the screen. We want to go in and find empty objects, stuff that might not have any knots, like this here, a spline with no knots, no segments. If you get into doing simulations and stuff like that, these will crash your simulations, having stuff in your scene with no faces, no objects. So we've gone through, and even scaled splines. You want to go through and repair all of this stuff before you go in and start working with it. So this is a good way of just having a free tool that you can sort of evaluate stuff.
Yeah, but we're working also on this working with Revit as well.
Yeah.
So
we're going to look at creating a good importer that sort of works hand in hand with this. We've had a lot of requests for that, is bringing Revit stuff into Max. So Ignite is sort of our whole main springboard, and these are the older versions of the springboard, which has a lot of the tools in here that we built up into the studio. Now we've gone through and we've done a complete rewrite on this before it went out into the public, because the poor guys in our office, they always having problems, and we can never get to like the little bugs that we get, because we're always working in production. So we really had to change things around to release for a public release. So a nice fresh rewrite was the way to go. So like I said, we have a lot of tools in here. And we're going to keep adding and keep maintaining this stuff. So even though Forensic's free, we're going to keep working on it and keep giving it out. So yeah, let's just jump ahead to the Scribe. All right, so I'm not going to go into every tool into detail, but I'm going to sort of talk about, just go over Scribe, which will give you an example of sort of what our tools are doing. We have a lot of stuff in here that you would get. I'm sure a lot of you guys use a lot of scripts for bulks, attaching, detaching, exploding stuff into segments, splines. We've added a lot of stuff with that. We have attaching, exploding by attaching by distance, by color, by layer. So it'll go through, evaluate what splines are touching each other. We've tried to make a lot of tools that are useful to you guys to use. There's some interesting functions in here as well. And a lot of this, like I said, comes from the retopologizing functions that we've been writing. We do use a lot of spline information in that as well. So it was a waste to sort of have tools like this and just not throw them into an interface that everybody can use. There is a big part of this which is diagnostics as well. I'm sure you guys have had splines that you go select it and it happens to be like 150 splines all just piled on top of each other. We have ways to deal with all that sort of stuff. We're working on using building stuff to build up whole landscapes as well. So we can take just random splines that are overlapping and snorting and then making plots out of those, which is what this is, our spline plot. So like I said, a lot of these tools come from other plugins that we're in the middle of writing. Our whole, I think the next part will go into a little more of the diagnostic stuff. We are reading a lot of data in, so any of our changes that we make, so say you need to go find all your reverse splines, go repair them, it'll go in anything that's, of course, red is bad, green is good, yellow is not applicable to it. But once you've worked on this, you always need that wire color back. So we have a way that you go through and diagnose your scene. We're not going to go changing. We don't want to screw up anything that you guys need to work with, which is wire color, sort of your objects themselves. But we can go through and diagnose stuff for CAD blocks, overlapping splines. This is a good example of what you generally get out of CAD. Is you'll have a spline, and this will go look for overlapping splines here. And one of these guys is going to be pretty much a nightmare. What is it? So it's got 142 different splines in there, which is typically what you get out of CAD. Just a ton of overlapping nightmare stuff. With a simple click of a button in C++, we can go evaluate that thing over and over and just remove all that. So you can detach or delete from there. And that's the difference between, like I said, going from Max and MaxScript to C++. We threw in a couple of tools that are just sort of useful, like conforming to surfaces, which this will go through, reevaluate how many knots it needs on this spline, and then when it's done, it re-optimizes these splines. And some of the stuff that we have added in here is a little bit of live feedback as well. So if you were to go, well, here's an example. We'd go attach this. It's going to tell you first if there's CAD blocks with that spline. So we want to give you the option before we go delete stuff. So you might get a couple of pop-ups that'll ask you if you want to do things first. And then in our spline tools themselves, you'll always have live feedback of what you're altering before you do it, which is another thing that you can't really get in scripts.
Could undo as well.
Yeah, working on that. So I would assume that everybody here is working in 3D Studio Max. Is that a yes? Yeah?
Okay, so the next one.
Our next tool is sort of, I'll explain why the squirrel is all over our software in a minute. Our next tool is our jumble tool. And sort of where this comes in is for random selections. So you can randomly select what you have in your scene, 20%, do largest scale, smallest scale, and a random sort of selection. And then a complete random transform. So a lot of these are smaller tools you wouldn't really sell by themselves, but they work really well in the Ignite interface. So if I was to, and I believe this sort of shows, I'm just going to crush them all down to the center. You can speed this up a little bit. Just going to put it all into the center. So it sort of shows some of the live stuff that we're doing. Yeah, just go a little forward. Yep, that's maybe a little back. Sorry. That's good. So everything is sort of live feedback as well, just sort of what you'd expect out of Max. The nice thing about this is it also remembers that you've used this tool. So at the end of this, I'll actually save this scene, open it, reopen it back up, select these objects, and put them back to the center. So we are writing to the node itself to remember its exact position. So yeah, here I'll reset the scene, do a hold, and then I'll do a fetch. So with the jumble tool, I can actually now go select any of the things that have been jumbled and then just say reset, and I'll remember where it was. And you can set initial states, put in random seeds and all sorts of different stuff. Illumi. We've teamed up with HDRI Skies. I'm not sure if any of you guys use their stuff. They have some amazing HDRI images, 16K images. We are putting this, we're bundling together some free HDRI images in this. And what this tool is sort of an HDRI viewer. So you don't have to sort of guess what sort of lighting scenarios you're going to get out of each image. So as you were to go in, and it understands what, right now you're in V-Ray and I've just switched to final render. So it's good, the interface understands that I've made that change. So you can go through and sort of look at the different HDRIs, spin them around, look at different, so you can north, south, east, or west, and just bring those right into your scene. Like I said, it depends if you're using V-Ray, they want to use it on the dome light. If you're using final render, it uses it in the environment slot. Corona, it has their own way of bringing it in. So the interface is going to do that depending on what rendering you have, or render engine you're using. Now we're going on to a little more of which is our main springboard, which is our main interface. So we rewrote the Play Blast or the animation preview. So you can now do up to 4K animations at any length. So if you have 1600 keyframes, you want to take it out at HD, we can do that now. And even if you don't have a 4K display, it'll go off and do a high-res screen capture of your screen anyway. It is kind of nice for just having something quick. We are working with Deadline now that you can actually send your animation previews to go off to Deadline, so you don't have your artist sitting there or you're not sitting there waiting for your preview to go through. It's sort of like it says on the tin. It's an animation preview, so it's nothing special, but you have some presets in there. We gave like this one, which is just a clay or a pure white preview with a clay preview. We've added in there, don't change any of my settings, so what you see on the screen is what you're going to have in the preview. But it sort of just gives you a different option. It was one of the tools that when we were always working in Max, the cap that you couldn't take out that to an AVI right away in HD for 1900 frames was holding us back. So we needed to come up with some solutions and some stuff that we could use. We also built in a lot of tools that sort of use every day. We have a live measurement tool where you can sort of go in, you can look at area of faces, length of segments, length of splines themselves. You can measure in between multiple objects. Just something to sort of help out your workflow, especially just a quick measurement tool. So if I create 3 of these little squirrels, and so the distance in between works from 3 or more down. It's just we end up with too many lines on the screen. But you can just select everything in your screen, turn on measurement, and it'll measure everything in your scene so you can go around. It's just sort of a quick, nice little tool to have in there. We have a lot of other stuff in this interface. We have random pivots, we have a pivot tool, we have set random colors, a lot of keyframing tools, straightening tools. You have buildings you're going to work on, you can hit straighten it, and it'll straighten this up so you can work on it, and it'll remember to put it back in its rotation when you're done working with it as well. We have a lot of the stuff up top is more of sort of giving you input on your screen, on your scene. So we have what meters or what scale you're working in, what gamma you're in, whether your cameras are not locked down or whatnot. It's just something that every time you open up that interface, you can sort of see what's going on. Because we've had a lot of freelancers come in and we're working on the same problem. Someone starts modeling something in centimeters, another person's working in meters, and then we got to convert all this stuff. So with this interface that we've used in our office, every time you open it up, you know that you're in the right gamma or what measurement scales you're in at the time. We've also added in a lot of the stuff, say, instancing objects. So now you can select everything in your scene and it'll go find that instance for you. You don't have to try and find similar and then instance these objects. So all these tools in this case would be, I select the object that I want to instance, and then I select everything, and then it'll go find something that's similar to that that can be instanced, and you can instance that. We also threw in a make unique tool, because if you have multiple stuff selected, you can't go into the command panel and make unique, so we just threw in a make unique button, which is this. We have a select by instances, we have select by wire color, we have our own select similar objects and select exact objects. We use this for a lot of the instancing and stuff, so we figured we'd just put in the buttons themselves. We did a complete object replace as well. And then we also have a renaming tool and a searching tool just built into this interface as well. So we tried to find everything that was sort of all around Max that everybody uses all the time and have it in one interface. As much as in the very top row there, you can save your own viewport settings, you can turn off cameras, show textures or not, everything is up there on the top. We've also put in the lockdown camera stuff, which is a little more than just locking down a camera. So every time you create a camera in your screen, the interface knows. And you can simply just lock that camera down, which is fine, everybody can do that. But what then we brought into it was if this camera, and what we'll do is if we link that up to the helper and then link the helper to the other helper and the other helper is on a path constraint, if you hit lockdown camera, it finds everything that's associated with that camera and locks that down as well. So you don't have to go worry about someone shifting a camera around and now your scenes don't match if you're working with multiple people working on the same shots. And also in your interface, it just screams at you in red if your cameras aren't locked down, which is kind of helpful. So a lot of these tools were just, like we said, scripts that we wrote and used in the office all the time, or stuff that freelancers have come in and requested that we add to the interface. And it just makes your workflow a little easier. At the very bottom here, we have our own sort of custom scripts as well. So you can load your own custom scripts into the interface. In the upcoming months, we're going to have it that you can actually send those online. So if you happen to go work in a different studio, you can come in, log into this interface and say download, and it'll download all your scripts to your interface. So we're trying to make things a little easier for freelancers as well that go from office to office. Our animation tool set, so we built in a lot of shifting keys, which if anybody's worked with XMesh, and they've done a lot of stuff, you can select the thousands of keys that are in XMesh, but they're very difficult to shift around. So we just put in a simple whole bunch of interfaces in there to flip keys, bake keys, delete keys, shift keys, and then a copy and paste key. So you can just simply select an object, hit copy, select another object, hit paste, and it'll copy that animation to it. And it realizes that if two objects are in a different direction, it's not going to just give the keyframe. They'll actually go by the object's orientation. But this just makes it a little easier to go, so you don't need to go in and filter your keys, say just show me all the rotation keys so I can get rid of those. It's just stuff to make your workflow a little faster. So, proxy, let's see.
We're fine.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So this is our universal proxy. We've done a lot of work on this because what we did, we needed to work with a couple of different companies when we were working on our big master plans at the time. So we had to share assets that didn't belong to us. We had a whole bunch of Evermotion trees that we couldn't give out to the studios that we're working with. We had buildings that came from other artists and we couldn't give out. So we needed to come up with a universal proxy that we could lock down and password protect. So, and we've been working on this for a good, year and a half, this proxy. We've got it down to the point, and this will bring in a scene here. I believe the stadium's already loaded into this. It's 33 million polys, and it's going to render out. We'll just hit render here in a second. It renders really fast. One thing that you can do with this is there's two ways you can use this proxy. You can save to the max file itself, which means you don't have any external files. You can say it embeds it right into the max file, or you can use external files themselves. So if it's something simple, you have, say, 10 buildings you want to just send off to a client, you can embed those right into the max file. They'll still be RSA encrypted, so no one will be able to get to them. The display settings, we sort of just did what everybody needed, half mesh, so you could actually see if you gave it to someone, they would be able to see to retexture this model back up. They wouldn't have full mesh mode though if it's in security mode. The only reason is because everything else, if you were to export this out, comes out with 0 faces, 0 verts, except for XMesh. It seems to capture everything. So if it is a lockdown proxy, you'll only see half mesh.
Can I just jump in for a second?
Sure, yeah.
The other thing that we've seen in the industry for so long is this competition between studios. And if I have to share my file with another studio, what we've typically seen is they're going to collapse meshes, they're going to remove faces, they're going to crop it up for us. So what we've done here is the ability to actually send and file protect a 100% integrity. Well, it keeps its integrity, so that studio knows that there's nothing wrong with that file. They can get rendering, they can use it, and we haven't tried to disrupt their workflow. If they're using Corona, they're going to be able to use this in Corona.
Yeah, it works with every render engine out there, and that's the big help that we've gotten from all the different companies of making sure that we work together and making sure that if Corona makes a change, it works in Corona. And if, Arnold's coming out, it works in Arnold. So all you would need to do is actually change the materials. And we're going to come up with a big material converter as well. So that's next on our list. We've added some other things. So like I said, if you were to take this proxy and I think we get to the point where I lock it down. Yeah, oh no, I've already done that.
Yeah.
So also, if you take this back out, it goes instantly back out into a mesh itself. And it doesn't lose its texture, it doesn't lose its position as well.
Yeah, so we used that recently on the Dubai project that I showed you, where we needed to send the assets to a bunch of companies around the world. We sent them in proxy, and then we had a password on it, and we were able to give that company a password, and they instantly opened it up as edit mesh and started working on it. So it meant that it didn't go off somewhere else in the world,
Yeah.
being nicked by someone.
We also added a couple of features into this proxy, which is useful, which is a color correct. And that works with like I said, all the render engines. So if you have final render materials on this, it'll work. If you have Corona materials, it'll work. We've sort of spent the time making sure that everybody's able to use this. So it also we built in camera clipping. And the way this works at render time is these are all instanced objects. And at render time, our software goes around and finds out, okay, well, how many instances do I have? Let's go do all the stuff that we need to do, like spline clipping, camera clipping, color correct. So right now, I'm saving this out to an external proxy, and I'm going to go, I'll show you it shows you the example of the color correct in here. The dreaded squirrel. All our software has this little squirrel in it. It came about, we were writing a render submitter, and we needed to write a render wizard for the studio, so everybody would just have presets. So I needed to find a whole bunch of different things that I could put in my scene, and the only animated animal I had to put hair and fur on at the time was a squirrel. So we've sort of adapted the squirrel. He's in every piece of software we have.
Everyone seems to be copying us at the moment with the what's it, Devons or
the John Lewis. Yeah, John Lewis commercial. Yeah, thank God, squirrel. Everybody's got one.
It's trendy.
So right now we're using, I believe this is iRay or Mental Ray. No, this is Mental Ray. So right now we're rendering this out and everything comes out the same. You go in now, turn on color shift. You can say how many variations of different materials you want. You can set this as high as you want, but the higher you go, if you set this to 100 different variations, you're going to use more memory, of course. So as this render is out now, you'll see all have a nice variation. They're independent objects. They're not in something like a scatter. So you can do this independently. Same thing with an animated spline. If you had an animated spline that was clipping these objects, they would disappear at render time as well. Jump to Cyclone, actually. Next one. The next plugin, and this sort of came about, we wanted people, we had a couple of people come into our studio and they were using some of the software from other companies, and it took them a long time to do tasks that were very simple. So we wanted something quick that we could use, which is pretty much a replacement to the spacing tool in Max, which is pretty much a Max script. So that's all this is. It's super easy. You pick your objects, throw them on a spline. We do have, your different display settings. We built in that you can show these in order, or you can actually shift the order of these things around. We can do it as a random pattern, or like I said, in order. We can get it to follow the spline, follow the spline direction as well, and then the object spacing. So it's just something that's really quick, simple to use. but we threw in the exact same interfaces with Proxi. So it's the exact same interface for color correction, for spline clipping, for camera clipping, all that stuff is exactly the same. So if you're used to using Proxi, you're used to use this. Same with our scatter. We figured we're not going to show in scatter. Scatter does the exact same thing, except instead of splines, of course, it does it on surfaces. So scatter won't be out till a little bit after the new year. We're sort of a little backlogged on just getting everything ready. But unlike the spline tool, everything's sort of a little live feedback. You can sort of see what's going on in your file as you're working on it. We didn't want to overcomplicate it with a whole bunch of different menus, but we just added in some of the stuff that you could use, useful stuff. So if you were going to build a parking lot, the very bottom one there is mirrors, so you could say put the cars at 0 or 180, so they would flip around. And then, like I said, it has all the spline clipping, so I believe I'll just demonstrate this in real time. That's fine, you can just leave it on this for a second. And camera clipping, we've also added in that there's an expansion. So stuff that's off your screen will also, cast shadows, so you're not sort of cutting stuff up. But yeah, it's like it says on the tin, it's just a simple scattering tool on the spline. I think that's it.
Right. That
Jump in there.
That shows you a small percentage of what we've done. And
Yeah, we have a lot more stuff. We have like the meshing tools, we have the relinking tools, we have the asset management tools. It's just too much to show in a
so
show.
what we thought today, we'll just show you briefly over the last 40 minutes of what is available now. So should we talk Ignite? Ignite's available now with
Ignite's available now. What Ignite comes with is it comes with Forensic, which is a scene checking tool. It comes with the Spline tool, which is Scribe, and it comes with Jumble, which is the random transform and the selection tool, and the full interface. Everything, like I said, is max scriptable as well. So as we're adding functions in there, like all the stuff in the Spline tools, if you're writing your own scripts, you can use our functions like detach, overlapping, and all that stuff, so it adds to your scripting abilities.
Yeah, so we built that in because big studios have their own pipelines. They need better build tools into it. So we're one of the only companies who have actually opened up the back end of what we do to allow studios to just rewrite and create their own tools.
Yeah, it's like I said, like a lot of this stuff all comes from our building engine tool. That's all we were going to build in the beginning was a city engine building tool, and as we went along, people in the office were like, well, can't you just throw that in an interface? We need to use that all the time. So, and then we had people asking, well, can we max script to that? Because it'd be really nice to just use some of the C++ functions in our max script. So we added that as well. So anything that you guys are interested in as well, just contact us. We'll throw it in the interface, or we'll look at it, or we'll figure out a way to do it. Because we're trying to speed up everybody's pipeline, and you guys might have ideas that help us out as well. So.
Can I ask how many of you are commercially working, or how many students? Show of hands, students? One? Two? That's good. All our tools are available for students for free because they're spending a fortune these days. So,
but it's not the individual that contacts the resellers. It would be your school. So tell your school to get in contact with our resellers, and we'll set you up with your school up with all the software for free. So anything that we write will be free for academic versions.
For the rest of you who are all working and earning loads of money, I hope, Blue GFX are our reseller in the UK. So talk to them about. Should we talk about pricing?
You can, yeah.
So Ignite. So we're selling individually. Ignite sells for £150, including all the HDRIs and 10 plugins built in. That's per year. Proxi, I think.
It's 60 quid a year.
60. And
Cyclone's 60 quid a year as well.
But we also, we must be crazy. We also thought, why don't we actually discount all that and sell it all as everything that we're doing now and in
the future.
in the foreseeable future for $249 a year,
which is everything. So
which is everything. You get all the code, you get the whole lot. We felt that's quite a reasonable price considering how much work we put into this.
yeah, it works out to about 4 pints a month. So
Yeah, we
not too bad.
did have a pint scale that yeah, we got.
We measure everything by
Yeah,
pints.
it got and we're sponsoring the drinks later, so I'll have some say on there. Any questions?
Yeah, sure.
Am I required to have a license in any of my working computers, or I have just a master computer where I do my things?
It's-
up to my colleagues?
It's an individual login. Everything is going to that. It's sort of like Adobe does, where you have an Adobe Cloud login. So you would log in at home or you'd log in the office. It's just one login. You're paying for a user. So if you had a studio, you do the same thing as you do with Adobe. You would log in, say you had 10 seats, you would assign those to users, and then those users could use those anywhere.
Has anyone been using our tools and beta? Yeah.
Any problems? No.
Talk to us, David.
It's the cleanup software.
Yes.
Forensic.
Oh, the Reach Ball
Is
Jump.
that available now?
That isn't available now, but that's on our, we have the HDRIs to bring out next, which we're working on, and then the meshing tools, which the Reach Apologizing will be in that, both versions. So the massing model version and the plain version. We've tested them on a lot of other things. They have worked, but they are mainly made for massing models or planes, the two versions. You get some strange stuff. If you use, say, the plain one on the massing models, you sort of tend to get rounded objects. So the way we wrote the retopologizing were for set objects, but they're in the tools. You also have the whole thing of uniforming normals and deleting double faces and all sorts of stuff in the meshing tools as well.
Sorry, you also hinted at some sort of file import.
Yes.
Where is that in the future?
That is in the future. Someone has asked us to look at writing a fresh importer for Revit. So stuff that you bring into Revit. Mainly like moving stuff to the center, because apparently when you bring in stuff from Revit that's really far away off in the distance, all the splines are messed up. It really screws up a lot of geometry. So we're going to look at that in a few, but that is a little bit down the road.
But it's
We
an
do have
interim
so
software
much.
that will still be
Yeah.
a standalone.
Yeah.
So you'll run that, and that will basically be between Revit or SketchUp and Max.
Well,
Okay.
it'll be an importer. For
Yeah.
Max. Yeah.
And would that be included in the...
Yeah.
The all-in, yeah. Everything that we're going to write is going to be in the all-in. What we're doing with, we have a couple other ones out there we didn't really talk about, which is Urbanize. There's Open Street View where you can actually get the streets as splines. You'll be able to take that and sort of build up a sort of ground plane geometry that you get from the street view data that then would help you build all the buildings for Colonize. So all this sort of is based on this whole city engine building thing, which we were hoping to have out now, but we wouldn't have any of these other tools. So yeah, it's a catch-22. Everybody wants something different yesterday.
Well, it's also that we're supporting 2014 to 17.
Yeah, one thing that did slow us down was we were making software over and over again for just 2016. And then as soon as we went to go resell everything and talk to people were using all sorts of different versions. So a lot of our software is a complete rewrite because stuff that worked in 14 doesn't work in 17 at all. So that completely slowed us down. And then, it just sort of the different versions definitely. And we were hoping to be further than we are.
But we're quite a long way.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Anything else?
No? Thank you everyone for coming.
Thanks a lot, guys. Appreciate it.